Hi, this short video is designed to provide an introduction to searching the database America's Historical Newspapers, available from the SHSU Library. You'll notice on our databases list we have several other specific newspaper collections listed, such as the African American newspapers and the Hispanic American newspapers, but all of those are simply sub-collections of America's historical newspapers. So searching at the America's historical newspapers level will always give you the broadest coverage. Now, when you first come into the database, you have your search page. You'll see your search box at the top where you can obviously just plug in keywords related to your topic. If you want several rows to help organize keywords in a complex search, you can click Add Search Field, and the page will reload and give you additional rows so that you can enter a variety of terms and connect them with search connectors like and, or, and not. You also have the ability to search just within a certain piece of the newspaper article, for instance, just within the headline. But in most cases, you'll just leave it as a full-text search. Now, the real power of searching America's historical newspapers comes with these search tabs. Because you're searching papers that span 1690 to 1998, you're searching 300 years worth of newspapers. This means that almost any search term is going to bring back a large quantity of material. I strongly encourage you, instead of only putting in keywords, to also find ways to narrow your search down by date, article type, or place. And we're going to go into each of these in a little more detail. The first tab you get is the dates and eras. Now you have several options even within this page. Eras in American history. These are predefined chunks of time based around historical events. This makes it very easy to narrow your search based on the kinds of major events that you know you're looking at. For instance, there's an option for the antebellum period, 1843 to 1860, and it will even tell you that the antebellum period is defined by the height of plantation slavery, the California gold rush, the Dred Scott decision, and the Mexican War. You can choose one or several of these time periods. So you could look at the War of 1812, the era of good feelings, the Jacksonian era, and the antebellum period. And by checking those four, you'd be searching about 1812 to about 1860. So you can adjust these however you like, but it gives you a way to narrow down that 300 years. Now there's also a list of U.S. presidential eras. This is really unique. This is a way to search the newspaper content based on who was serving as president when the newspaper was published. So for instance, you could look at all the presidents from Thomas Jefferson through Andrew Jackson, which would let you search about 1801 to 1837. This is a really unique option for defining your search based around who you're studying in class and who was president. Now, in addition to the presidential eras and the historical eras, you also have a box for a custom date range. This gives you infinite flexibility. You can enter one specific date, such as January 1st, 1820. You can enter a range of dates, which could be a range of years, 1799 through 1805, or a range of dates, 1/1/1820 to 1/1/1822. You can also do after and before. So you could do after December 31st, 1799, which would at least start your search in the 1800s or the 19th century. Or you could say before 12/31/1819, which would limit your search to the 17th century and, say, the first 19 years of the 19th century. You have, as I said, infinite flexibility here to define the search however you need to search just a day, a couple of days, a couple of weeks, to really, really hone in on specific events. The only thing you want to keep in mind with this is that in historical periods, the news would not necessarily have been reported as rapidly as we're accustomed to seeing today. So if you're looking at a specific event, you may not be able to search, only the 3 days when that event occurred. You may need to go a little bit further forward in time to accommodate for a different pace in journalism. So that's the Dates and Eras tab. Now we're also going to take a look at the article types. You may not use this on every search, but this can be interesting. You may find that your searches get bloated by a lot of advertising content. So if you're not interested in advertisements, if that doesn't relate to your search topic, you can focus just on news and opinion articles. You also have the ability here to focus on notices that would relate to certain people, like births, marriages, and deaths. You can focus on cartoons and illustrations in the papers. Now, those are going to be more relevant in certain time periods than in others, just depending on how much of that illustrated content they're putting in the papers. But these are some great options depending on what you're looking for to be able to only search in certain sections of the newspaper. Now finally, the third thing we're going to look at here is the Places of Publication tab. This is really, really incredibly helpful if you're looking at certain regions. Now you can focus just on a particular state, or I'm going to show you if we come down here to, let's look at Connecticut. You could just check mark all of Connecticut, or you can click the little plus sign here beside it and actually get a list of specific cities inside Connecticut. Now, obviously, it's not listing every city in Connecticut, but it's listing cities for which they have newspaper content in this database. So if you know you're looking at a person or an event that's primarily going to be focused in a certain city or state or region, you can narrow your search down to a couple of cities, one state, a couple of states, however you need to narrow it down. Now let me show you something really cool that this database is going to do for you. We're going to go back to the Dates and Eras tab. We're going to look at the eras in American history. Oops. And we're going to choose the Jacksonian era and the antebellum period. Now, once those are chosen, we're going to go back to the Places tab. You'll see here at the top of the tab, it now shows you that you've already chosen those time periods. Now when you look at the list of states, you'll see some states have this gray note that says 0 titles, and the checkbox looks a little different. What this is telling you is that, say for Alaska, it's telling you there are no Alaska newspapers that were published during the time periods you selected. So it's actually filtering down the available states and the available cities to show you which cities and states actually have newspapers that match these time periods. And that's kind of cool. It'll help you figure out what regions do we have reporting from that time and what regions do we not, to give you a little more of an understanding of where the newspaper coverage can even be obtained from a different time period. Now obviously you've also got some options here to narrow down to specific newspaper titles. You might use those in some specialized searches, but in many cases you're really just going to want to stick with the dates and places and, of course, your keywords. So let's look at the Jacksonian era and the antebellum period, and let's do a search for political parties. Now you'll notice I'm putting the quotation marks around the phrase, telling it to just find those two words together in that specific order. Now this is just a very general search, obviously. I just wanted to get some results back to show you what this is going to look like. You can see what you searched for. You can see how many results you got. Each result is going to show you the newspaper that it came from, when and where it was published, the headline that matched your search, and then you'll see just a very small snippet of the article. The earliest results will always be listed first. So if this first result is from January 7th, 1823, so you know that that's the earliest newspaper that matched your search. And the further you go through these pages of results, the later in time you're going to be moving. Now if you want to look at a newspaper article, you can click View Article. You'll notice you also have an option to view the full page. We're going to take a look at that in a second. Let's view this article. So the database will load this special viewer on the screen to show you the article you chose. And you can move through it and read the image of the article. Now you'll notice on the right, you can see the page that this is on and the headlines of all of the other articles on that page. So you can jump to another article, or you can actually jump out to the page level. This is really handy because it's going to show you that article in context on the page. You can see here it's going to highlight each article as you roll around on the page, but being able to see it all together gives you a sense of what else is happening on the page around this. Are there images, cartoons, illustrations that might be related to this? What kinds of advertisements are going on in this time period? What other kinds of news is happening? So that instead of just reading that one article in isolation, you can really get a sense of the larger context of life and what's happening around that story. Now let's go ahead and just pick one of these articles to zoom in on again. And I want to draw your attention to the fact, if you want to print or save this article, don't try just going to your browser and doing file print, because from this viewing window, this article will not print correctly and it will not be very easy to read and use. If you want to print or download this, always come up here to the upper right corner and click on the PDF button. This will open a PDF file, which you can then much more easily print or download. Now, once this PDF opens, I really want to draw your attention to what is missing. Now, you may be looking at this and saying, what is she talking about? What's missing? Well, what's missing is the headline, the name of the newspaper, the date that the paper was actually published. You'll see a date here, but this is the date that the story was written or received at the newspaper, not the date the paper was printed. And those dates can be very, very different in certain historical time periods. So I want to draw your attention to the fact that everything you need to cite this article in a research paper is missing. So when you save a newspaper article from this database, always be sure you get this information from above the viewer: the headline, the newspaper, the date, the pages, everything you would need to cite this. Make sure you save that information somewhere, in the file name or in an accompanying text file, or print the article out and scribble it down on the back, whatever works for you, so that you have this data available later to cite this article in your paper. So that's a brief introduction to America's historical newspapers. There's 300 years of just incredibly dense historical content here. You're sure to find something on just about any topic. So I hope you really enjoy exploring this database, digging into these newspapers, and discovering some amazing history.